let's start by talking about today's release of the BBC poll of hot new acts, the acts that are going to break this year. What's your view of those polls? Are they any use to you? Do you find new acts through them?
I think it's very useful because it gives exposure to people that maybe wouldn't get that exposure to the mainstream. It is obviously a bit of a double-edged sword because sometimes there's acts there that would benefit of not being in the limelight, quite obviously, and others that do benefit, some up their game. If you look at Florence and the Machine last year, when she appeared in it, she was almost overtly arty and sort of quirky and kooky to the point of being almost slightly irritating at times. But then after she got the exposure, she upped the game. Songs got better. She matured as an artist pretty quickly, and I don't think that would have happened had she not had that attention. It turned out to be a fantastically talented musician. So, yeah, I mean, and also it's January, isn't it? So people want something to talk about.
Yeah, you just finished in December, finishing summing up the past, and then suddenly you want to go forward, like Bono in his classic New York Times editorial, isn't it?
Let's talk about downloads. 5 years too late, dude. Yeah, I mean, and everyone loves a list.
Yeah.
As we were saying.
But even if you hate a list, you love a list, don't you? I mean, I often find myself hating the list, and then I'm joining in. I'm saying, well, why isn't that in, and why aren't I selecting it? And it's a weird thing, isn't it? You know, there's too many lists, but yet I'm still arguing about them.
People like to be, you know, opine on like first place, second place. What's kind of weird is I think there's a culture now with the Sound Of list, maybe, and maybe other lists, that you don't want to be number one. You want to be number two. You don't kind of want to win it because then all eyes are on you, the pressure's on you, you have to deliver. Whereas number two, you can go, yes, I'm amazing, I'm better than all these other people, but I'm not necessarily the one you're going to be watching first.
Yes.
So I think maybe some of the record companies would rather their acts get just the right amount of exposure without being the chosen one, the anointed one, at the top of the list.
And in the new world that we're now in, you know, this situation where a Florence and the Machine or a Little Boots or an Ellie Goulding gets selected, is that now just part of the DNA of how things are operating? And to an extent it's a positive thing because it suggests that they now, you know, are in a position where they can focus themselves, that it's not necessarily going to be a damaging thing. This is part of the system now that we accept. It's
beneficial for everyone, isn't it? I mean, what we were just saying was very much how the BBC benefits from this exciting piece of news at the start of the year, and we've talked about how exciting it is for the record companies to have this wonderful tool. It's also very exciting for the artists. They get an opportunity to get exposed at that. And also, it's the artists can exploit this situation. You know, if you time your tour right, and you time your single release right, then you can maximise the amount of impact you're going to make with your music, and it will reach more people, which is the point of putting music out. You want people to hear it. So, without sounding, you know, overtly positive about it, punters win because they get to hear lots of new stuff. The media wins because it's got a nice big story at the start of the year about lots of new great acts. And the artists and the management win because they get to reach as many people as possible.
Matt, have you got any point of your position at BBC Six Music, how this list is actually put together? You know, who they are, how they come to the decision. Is there any a way you can manipulate the list, you know, sort of persuade the list to go a certain way?
It's 160, 163 people, something like that. Writers like yourself, although not yourself.
Not myself.
Not yourself. Not me either.
Tastemakers,
record company people, marketing people, PR people, people from the industry that have a handle on who's worth watching. I don't think it's manipulatable. It is the BBC, so everything's got to be pretty. It's got to be quite transparent. I think if there was anything. But
is there someone in control at the BBC of it? Is there a furor, so to
speak?
There
is a guy, because it originated from BBC Online. It's 5 years, 6 years it's been going?
Yeah, 50 Cent was it, the first
one? There we go. It's just great to have new bands at the start of the year. It's exciting.
Because that's the healthy way of looking at it. I was saying, Ellie, actually, in a way, it's like almost people have got together to create an alternative to the X Factor system.
Yeah, I suppose so.
It's a way of presenting new potential stars in a healthier way than them being puppets.
Yeah, well, you know, I think you have to be musically pretty sound. It's going to be quite obvious if someone gets on there just because they've been signed by X record company and they've got £500,000 behind them.
Yeah.
If they did appear on the list, it'd be very, very obvious very quickly that they didn't belong there.
Because these 163 people, whoever they are, seem to want to make it very clear that it's a list that the acts have integrity. That these are an important new acts, not necessarily merely commercial acts.
Yeah, I think that's integral to the whole thing. It's got to have a certain amount of integrity. It's got to be real, and also people can sniff out fakery very quickly these days. It's the antithesis of X Factor. when you understand it's all this is a construct. This is you will like this. Here are the acts. They're singing the songs that we've chosen, for them to sing in this environment, and you will go and buy it, and it will be number one.
Yes.
You're party to being manipulated,
Yes.
whether you care or not. It's a different matter. With this, people can tell if it's being faked, and if one of the bands, for instance, did, used to be a session bass player in Simply Red. 10 years ago, that would have been kept secret. Now, people will find that out because of the access to information they've got. So
Yes.
It's got to be kosher, it's got to be straight.
With the record industry, having to develop new ways of promoting their bands, has this kind of list become a new way that they can hype a band?
Hype's a funny word. I mean, I don't know if this is a hype list. Hype should come from something less tangible than being voted the top. The act with the top sort of potential for that year, voted for by people that may have a vested interest or people in the industry, which is great because it brings a certain validity to the list. But also, at the other hand, hype should be slightly more ethereal, kind of exciting, spontaneous. Hype implies a certain lawlessness and being out of control and being quite reckless with your immediate future. That doesn't happen if you've just been stuck on the list.
I guess because also it becomes part of the business plan. This
Exactly.
kind of thing always used to go on. Record labels had their priority acts, but it's almost like they're making it known what their priority acts are.
There you go. Yeah. So, which has always happened, and that's great. And often record companies get it right. They often get it wrong, but that's a different thing, I think.
Yes.
To being hyped.
Yeah. The band you were in, Menswear.
Yes.
I never quite knew how to pronounce it. Have I done it?
It's just Menswear.
Are you sure? I always go for Menswear. I don't know why. In a way, you had an equivalent thing. I mean, you had this moment yourselves where you were kind of on an abstract list, if you like, of things about to make it, and you were on top of the pops before you had a record out. You covers of magazines, and so in a way, you were the equivalent of the anointed ones in the mid-90s, weren't you?
That was hype from the minute that. I mean, I'd come from like being in bands when I was a sort of teenager, younger than that, and it was always about getting a record deal. It was this massive, untouchable thing. That's always been the way with record deals. And I remember going to the first rehearsal with Menswear and the bass player going, we're going to be signed like in a couple of months.
Yeah.
So, what is it going to happen? Yeah, it's just going to happen. That's just what's going to happen because it's all ready to go. The band looked fantastic. There was a very strong image. We hung out at the right places and everyone got very excited about it and went a bit mad.
Yeah.
Probably spent more time writing better songs.
So where did the confidence of that happening come from then?
That's a good question. I don't know. Youth, stupidity, booze. It all kind of happened very easily and all happened very, very quickly. I am quite proud of bits of it because it was it's Menswear have kind of become almost the shorthand for a band that gets ridiculously hyped and then disappears and weren't very good. In hindsight, it's kind of nice to be that kind of footnote. Yeah. Rather go out in because to quote John Bon Jovi, a blaze of glory.
You had a sort of really funny list now of bands that never quite work. I mean, I've seen you described as Britpop's North Side, for instance, and kind of a lot of bands, even more obscure bands that you kind
North Side, North. Yeah, can I take? Yeah, I think we were better than North Side.
You're fighting back now.
Yeah, I'm just sort of going. No, we were better than North Side.
Yeah. Has it also given you a kind of empathy over the years, looking at bands that have had an equivalent setup, if you like, and then it doesn't happen for them, and sympathising with the misery it must be when they seem to be, golden boys, and the next minute they're completely, exiled.
Yeah, I used to know The Darkness quite well, which is an interesting example. In fact, I still see them about a little bit. And that was the closest thing, or that was much more successful, that I'd seen in recent times. Does anyone even talk about them anymore? It's like they didn't exist. It's like they've been some sort of Stalinist, they've just been painted out of rock history completely. Wasn't it 15 million records or something they sold internationally?
Seeing them in arenas. And
they played Wembley Arena like 3 times or something stupid like that. And then that was just gone, second record, just gone. So I remember seeing that happen and watching from the outside how a band can go from, I used to think they were great when they first started, a fantastic band, incredible rock songs. And watching how quickly, firstly, how obvious it was from very, very early on, which maybe Menswear was the same, you just go, this is going to be huge.
Yes.
The charisma is massive. This is just going to go right off.
Yeah.
Seatbelts on, strapping.
And what is that obviousness? Is it just everything seems to be heading in the right direction and no one's doubting it at all?
Yeah, it's that. It's the hype thing, isn't it? When the kind of shutters come down.
Yeah.
the excitement. Also, people want bands like that. People want bands to be excited about. So the hype's not just generated by the band, it's generated by music lovers who really, you know, how excited people were when the Strokes came out, how fucking thrilled they were that there was a band that looked fantastic, sounded fantastic, had all the right influences, looked like a gang, they were petulant and stroppy, and God, that's great. I love that. I'm just excited about the idea they exist.
But in a way, is there an equivalent sort of warning in a way to what happened to you, to what can happen now, in the sense that by the very nature of everyone suddenly looking to you, it completely destroyed any potential for the group to actually become the group it might have become without it? Or is that not relevant?
I think with Menswear, it kind of destroyed itself, really. I don't think there was any, we weren't really aware of what was going on around it. We just took it all for granted. We thought it was perfectly normal and almost expected that we should be on the cover of the Melody Maker now, before we have a single out, and we should go on top of the pops before we have a single out, because we're great. And the first 3 songs that we wrote were the first 3 singles in order. That was just the way it was. With hindsight, you look back and go, that's not the way it's supposed to be at all. You're supposed to spend ages writing lots of songs. You're supposed to get really good before you get signed. You're supposed to spend a bit of time getting your image together, you know. But when you're 19 and you're going to all these parties and there's, you know, all these other amazing bands that you admire, like Blur over there, you know, it just kind of feels stupidly.
So in a way, these lists and these polls that we're surrounded with now, they're possibly an attempt to recreate those great moments of, you know, like early 2000, it seemed to have dissipated to such an extent, and then something like the Strokes reminds us that it is still possible for something new to come along and set the world on fire. And this year it's Ellie, you know, sort of goes out before Arms Out and wins an award at a massive music ceremony. But does that break the DNA though, or is it just an inevitability? I.e., as soon as it's done, it makes it mainstream, when in fact the point of it was that it wasn't mainstream.
Oh God, it's getting really postmodern, this music industry, isn't it? The fact, I don't know, because there's always going to be stuff. Okay, so if Florence and the Machine used to be edgy, now she's mainstream. Well, there's going to be another edge further beyond there of an edgier band. So then they become the edgy. And if actually we love them, we love School of Language, fantastic. So they get brought into the mainstream, but there'll be someone even edgier than that, and it will just, rather than this self-replicating alternative. Aura around the music industry of the weird stuff and the strange stuff. It's just constantly expanding all the time, which is good.
So what is the overall goodness of where we are now? Because in one sense, a way of looking at it is there's just an incredible glut of pop music. It's everywhere you look. It's in the mainstream. It's the world itself almost. Is that necessarily a good thing, or is it in the end the final removal of any meaning there ever actually was in the music, because it just is now Doris Day? Everything is Doris Day. Even if it's Animal Collective, it's Doris Day.
Everything is mainstream. Everything is available to everyone. It's an odd point, isn't it? On the one hand, I suppose labels and scenes make it easier to attach meaning. It's easier to access stuff. If you go, well, if I like them, then I like them. But the beauty of music has always been, or to get the most out of music, you know, you have to have an open mind and be as eclectic in your taste as possible. It's people like your job to put signposts up, not tell people what to listen to, but if you love Florence, then she loves these artists, go and check those out. Or if you love the XX, then you know, their support band is so-and-so, they're really good as well. Keep those, people can find them for themselves, obviously, but the media still has a role in kind of directing people a little bit. That sounds terribly patronising.
No, but it's interesting, because whereas once there was a sense that there was an ideological or a social purpose to music being new, original and different, now it seems to be there's much more of a commercial, like you said about the alternative becoming the mainstream.
What do you mean?
Well, you know the idea of rock music remaking landscapes, remaking culture by its originality and it coming out of nowhere. Now, because it's been 50 years of it, it seems that that purpose has kind of gone.
Oh, okay.
And I'm wondering what has replaced it. You know, the idea now that if you listen to a band making noises that once upon a time would have had an ideological reason why they were the way they are, now they seem much more decorative, if you like. You know, like Gang of Four did that. There was an ideological purpose why that guitar sounded like that. Now you get bands 4 or 5 generations down making that. It's removed from its original purpose, if you like. It's to become part of this wonderful glut of music, if you like, rather than. I'm just wondering if that's the end of something, or is it the beginning of something?
Bands will always be looking for new things to get angry about, to get excited about. You know, I think pop has been absorbed as being, as you hear, just like a standalone thing. Just great pop just means great pop.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to stand for anything, and it can be appreciated as such. But I think I don't think there's going to be another punk moment. I don't think there's going to be another Summer of Love, acid moment. I don't think that's going to happen, because that requires the movement and the genres, the barriers of which, as we said, have sort of disappeared. But I still think it's possible for people to get emotionally involved and find something in music. We were talking about Britpop. Look at the Blur reunions over summer. They didn't just stand for this band that you loved playing the songs that you loved. It stood for, you had an emotional connection with these four individuals getting back together and creating something, and whether it was Damon crying at Glastonbury or Graham hugging Alex, you felt something tangible about this band's performance, and that, as with any great band, will always be there, and that's what we invest our emotion into. That's what contained.
Because that is interesting. That as pop, to some extent, and certainly the industry of pop is sort of disintegrated while changing shape. The power of it to connect people seems to be bigger than it's ever been in terms of live performances being more important. It seems to be that even though the meaning I'm looking for is certainly gone, other meanings are coming into play.
Exactly. You know, you have to look at Glastonbury. It's greater than it ever was, arguably. People still need to commune. I'm talking in cliches here. Commune together and experience music in a field. It's lost none of its meaning. It's good that live music has, over the last year, it overtook recorded music in terms of income for the first time in music history. So people still want to see. Maybe that's it. Maybe people, because of this loose media, everything means everything to everybody, thinks that is what you get on record. But when you see it live, it's different. You forget about all that crap. You just watch a bunch of people playing songs that mean something to you. Maybe that's why that's done so well over the past couple of years.
You've cheered me up a bit about it now. I was getting a bit angry this morning. When the email comes through, BBC, here we go again, I was thinking, but I guess it's just an equivalent of the things that used to go on all the time, really. Yeah,
it's just the same. It's just one more way of getting music to people, Before they work out the technology to beam it straight into their heads. When you sign up to Polydoors, tick the box. Are you happy to have music beamed directly into your frontal lobes? Yes, I am. Once a month. There goes a new single. Until that happens, they've got to find new ways of getting new music out there. And there's always going to be bands on the edge, no matter where the edge is. And the people that are looking for it will always find it. And if it's great enough, it'll be held into the mainstream.
Thanks, Matt.
Pleasure.
Wonderful.